You have another 10 minutes. That's it.
Okay. All right. Tell us a little bit about.
No, you're gonna no. Don't do that to me.
What?
Everybody knows who I am, right?
Said Larry.
All right. Okay. I'm Larry
All right,
Harlow. I'm
but
the marvelous Jew from Latin music, and been a band leader for over 50 years, and probably over 60 years, and having a great time. Fell in love with Latin music when I was a teenager. Went to Cuba, studied there before Fidel closed the university, and New Year's Eve, 1958, I took off. 58, 59, I took off back to the United States and pursued my career as a upcoming Latin musician, as a sideman with many different orchestras around New York. Tito Rodriguez, Pacheco, even Tito Puente at one time, and in 1964, I had an idea for a new sound, and right after the World's Fair, playing with Pacheco in New York, decided to form the first orchestra, Harlow, which was one of the first bands to utilize trombones with trumpets together. There might have been one or two other bands before, but nobody that really made it, and it kind of changed the sound in what we now call salsa music. Salsa? What is that? Tito Puente used to say salsa. I put that on top of my spaghetti. So, it's just a word meaning a mixture of Afro-Cuban music and a little New York bebop all mixed together to make some great Latin American dance music. And we just continued the trend of the mambo and the cha-cha-cha, and it evolved into what we have today called salsa dura. And I was the first one to sign with the newly Fania Records, and the rest became history. They just kept signing young, talented artists, and even some old guys like Ray Barreto and Puente and etc. And we went on to have a wonderful time with Celia, and we formed an all-star band, made a couple of movies, opened the doors to lots of different countries that had no idea what salsa music was. And in the meantime, we didn't get rich from it, but we made a nice living, and we had a good time playing music that we love. And we're still doing it. Funny All Stars on October 18th, this past year, 2013. Performed in Puerto Rico. Again, we hadn't played together in a few years, and we lost a few members in the last couple of years. Yomo Toro se murió, Junior Gonzalez, etc., etc., etc. But the basic guys are still there, although getting up there in age. But we're still performing, still having a good time playing all over the world, and we just want to pass down some of our messages to the youth, and trying to keep this music going forever, because it is a wonderful art form. Yes, okay, so I started my career around the dance halls. If you really want to know the truth, I came upon a lot of prejudice from Hispanic people, mainly from the promoters, other musicians, and the die-hard Latinos in New York. They say, how can an American gringo kid, Jewish kid, play good Latin music? Well, they found out, and it wasn't easy. I came across a lot of reverse Uncle Tom, and I had to get them over their prejudices before I got over mine. Let's reverse or whatever. Anyway, but the band was good, and we kind of kept a traditional Cuban sound most of my career, except for a couple of years of boogaloo that we were forced to do. I hated it in the '60s. I hate it even more now. So it really sucks. And it's for a musician to play "Hang On, Sloopy" and 1-4-5 chords, very basic, and lyrics in English. It to me is not salsa music. So it has its own little niche and its own little crossover following that don't speak Spanish. So let them do that. It has no real dance value. It has no nothing to me. So it's almost as bad as reggaeton. Not yet, but it's getting close. So this is just my opinion, and I'm just stating my opinion as being a real purist in the music. Ray Barreto, myself, Palmieri, Pacheco. We kind of kept that Afro-Cuban thing alive, after all the masters have passed, Machito and Tito Rodriguez and Tito Puente and Celia, etc., etc. So we're just trying to pass on this great music to the next generation, and hopefully the dancers, and there are a lot of them out there around the world doing all their congresses, will keep this music alive for us, and just keep going on and on. I'm like the battery, the bunny, the energizer battery. That's me. I keep on going. And I'm 175 years old, and I look great, don't I? I've been married several hundred times.
Wow.
I have over 21,000 children, and not one comes to visit me.
You sound like
To the boom.
Dracula.
I have to make this funny because everybody else is going to do this very straight for you, you know.
So what were the venues that you played at back in the days in the Bronx? And who was your first band? Was it with Tito Rodriguez that you played in the Bronx, or was it?
That I played with?
Yes.
No, I think the first Bronx gigs, it took me a while to get to the Bronx. You know, when I first started, we would play in American venues like the Albemarle Towers or the St. Fortunatos and St. Rocco's churches. And these were places in Brooklyn and in Queens where the audience was made up of a few Hispanics, but basically American people, Italians and Jews, who loved to dance Latin music. And I think it was $3 to get in or something. And they paid us, I think, $15 or $14 to perform. I had 6 guys in my band, and none of them were Hispanic. So we used to call it the Al Vega Sextet. And the people would say, well, who's Al Vega? And I said, him, you know. So there was no Al Vega. We had no lead singer because nobody could speak Spanish. So we would sing 8 bars of choral and then do 8 bars of trumpet, choral, trumpet, choral. But we played good. We had the clave, we had the rhythm, but we didn't have the songs and we didn't have the singer. And of course, no singer, the people had no one to fall in love with. Right. So that was it. Because you take one pretty boy, you put him in front of the band, and he's a star already, even though he can't sing. But it's really, if you think about it, it's really the band leaders, the Barrettos, the Pachecos, the Rowenas, the Bobby Valentines, that were the brains behind this salsa movement. And it could have, I had Ishmael Miranda, who started with me when he was 16 years old. And I boosted him up. And then after 7 years, he took off and started his own band. So then I got another one, the Junior Gonzalez, and Esther Sanchez, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a natural progression of one band splitting up from another. For example, Ray Barretto split into Típica 73, split into Fascinación too, or Los Quimbos, or Los Quimbos became Fascinación or whatever, and everybody kept separating, and then we were more bands, and now there were more bands, and there were work, so a lot of people went without eating a few nights. But we played in the Bronx. The Bronx had tons of clubs. It took me a while to get there, for the white boy to get to the Bronx. So we played in the Tri-Towns, and we played Colgate Gardens, and we played the Bronx Casino, and we played Hunts Point Palace, and there was so many of them, the Club Cubano. It was like going to school, for me anyway. It was like going to school and learning the real deal. I get to see all the greats play. In the late 50s, all the bands were coming to the Palladium in New York from Cuba. So I got to see Aragon and Chaputin and Benny Moré and all these people before I went to Cuba. So it was quite a difference. We became friends. I was still a student at 17, 18 years old, and they would say, come on, you want... Judío, they used to call me, you want to play with us? And I said, no, I'm not ready. And then I didn't see the guys from Aragon for maybe 10 years. And then in 1969, we ran into each other in Venezuela, and they were playing a street concert. And they said, Judío. I said, yeah. I said, you want to play with us? I said, ahora sí. And then when I jumped in, and then they called Tres Lindas Cubanas, and I played that song with them, and I was so proud that I was able to play with Aragon. You know, and I was in my 20s at that point. But now we're friends. They come to the States, so we meet up, or we meet in Europe and have a couple laughs, a couple beers, and talk about the old days. A lot of them have passed away also. There's only 2 original members left in that band. But we keep on going, you know, like the Energizer, you know. But it was a lot of fun in the Bronx, you know. I discovered Hispanic women. And then that was it. I've been married several hundred times, I told you. And matter of fact, I'm getting married again shortly. She's due here in 2 days, so I'm very excited about that. Yes.
Larry, talk a little bit about Arsenio Rodriguez and how he influenced your musical...
Not just me. Arsenio Rodriguez was the father of modern Latin music. You have to imagine, before Arsenio Rodriguez in the 30s, the only Latin music there really was, danceable Latin music, was sextetos and septetos. there were really no big orchestras then or stuff like that or conjuntos. Arsenio added the conga drums to a sexteto or septeto format. Can you imagine a Latin band today without tumbadoras? You know, it's kind of virtually impossible anymore. And then he added the piano. And then he added 2 trumpets, then 3 trumpets, then written arrangements. So he was like the father of the mambo. At that time, they called it the mambo diablo because it was the devil's music, you know. But he was a prolific composer. He was kicked in the head by a mule when he was 9 years old and blinded. His family had come from the Congo in Africa. He spoke many dialects of African languages. He spoke Congolese, he spoke Bantu, he spoke Awakwa, he spoke, Swahili, whatever you want. A prolific poet, tresero. He played the tres, he played the congas, and he wrote wonderful songs, most of which, and I'd say about 75% of which, the lyrics had double meanings. And the public really didn't know this. It took me years to find this out from talking to his buddies and other musicians, but he would sing a song, telaraña no tiene telaraña. Now, why is he singing about a spider? But really, he was singing about a woman's private parts, you know, so he said, I ain't getting none, you know, I need some, you know. But only the guys in the band and a few select people knew what he was singing about. Or he'd sing about El Tiburón, se va, El Tiburón, which really meant, look out, your wife just came into the salon, you know. So the guys in bed would turn around, whose wife is it, you know, what's happening. So he had a lot of songs like that too. And plus he would sing in Congolese a lot. And I had the privilege of being at the Smithsonian in Washington right before he died. It must have been about 1969, where he played with his brother, Kike, and Lázaro Prieto, the bass player, just a trio, on the steps of the Smithsonian, and sang 1 hour's worth of Congolese lullabies in a child's voice, in a female voice. So he was singing in falsetto, these beautiful Congolese melodies. I mean, and later on I got a translation, so I knew what he was singing, and I was there with one of the first, what do you call those, little Walkmans, one of the first Walkmans recording Arsenio, and to this day, that is a priceless piece of work, which I gave to a museum to hold for me. But wonderful man. He used to sit in with us a lot. In New York, there was a place called the Bat Cave on Broadway and about 180-something street. And we used to play there every Wednesday. And Arsenio lived in the neighborhood, and he came over a couple of times, and his brother said, can Arsenio sit in with you? And I said, oh, my God. You know, like, it's like being touched by God, you know, like. I said, sure. So he sat there, he came up on the stage and he sat down, he picked up his tres and he played ding, 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 and all the hairs on my body stood up, and all the musicians kind of like looked at each other saying, okay, either you're a man or, I think that was at the Corso. He said, you're either a man or a mouse. So he sat in with me a few times, and, you know, he came to the States to try and get his sight back, to get an operation, and it just didn't work, it didn't happen, and so he knew he was blind for life, and then he signed with a couple of hokey record companies that made him play Boogaloo also at the time. And he made a couple of terrible albums in the late 60s. And then he passed away in California, and they shipped his body back to New York. And he was buried up in Hartsdale, New York, half hour out of New York. And a few of us went to his grave one day, and it was his 100th birthday. And we realized there's no tombstone. There's no marker in the ground that says that this is where Arsenio is buried. So we started to take up a collection, and it came at 50 cents, $1, $2. And I'm saying, it's going to take forever, you know. So I wrote a check out of my personal account to pay for a marker for his grave. And he's buried next to, he's buried next to, what's his name? Malcolm X. So it's Arsenio and then Malcolm X. So, yeah. So Chocolate and myself and Aurora Flores and a bunch of the collectors and Rennie Lopez and Andy Kaufman, we threw a little party at his gravesite when they put in the it's not a tombstone. There's no tombstones in the cemetery. It's just like a plaque that goes in the ground. bronze plaque, and then we bought some flowers and chocolate plate, and everybody played, and we did a bunch of Arsenio songs and told stories, and it was a very wonderful afternoon. So he's now 101 years old. Kind of miss a talent like that, but he'll be remembered forever.
Well, your music helps keep that memory alive.
Yeah, I always used to try to include at least one Arsenio song in most of my recording. I wasn't recording old songs, but he was just a wonderful musician, a wonderful person, by the way, too, very philosophical. There's very little video footage of him, maybe a couple of seconds here, a couple of seconds there. So it's very difficult to see him live in person.
Larry, you got a book coming out, right?
Yeah, how'd you know about that?
I heard my sources. Tell us a
Okay.
little bit about
Well,
that.
for the past 3 years, Aurora Flores and I have been working on my memoirs, and it's a very interesting story. It's not just this. I mean, since I decided to, I always wanted to write a book, and then one day I was at Lincoln Center and doing La Raza Latina. You played there too, and my son was sitting next to this guy, and this guy happened to be a literary agent. He said, "Your father should really write a book." So we all got together and we started talking about it, and I'd say, "Well, who do you want to write with?" Larry Rhoda from the Times and this one, and they were all great writers, but they were too busy to service me, and I don't like to wait for anybody, so I happen to like Aurora Flores and the way she writes, and I know her since the '60s, and she's been around Columbia journalism, blah 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 blah, and she understands Jewish humor, she understands the Jewish background, she loves Latin music. And she's a wonderful, funny writer. So we started working together. I thought it'd be okay. I just write this. Well, in 1 year, done. You know. Well, now we're in the third year. We're shopping the book right now through a literary agent in California. The same guy who shopped Jenny Rivera and Rita Moreno's books, who did very well, by the way. He's also shopping Santana's book right now, who wrote a biography too. So should come out sometime next year. And it's not just a story about Latin music and a Latin guy. It's a story about me. Growing up, with my Jewish roots, when Brooklyn was farmland, I'm an old dude, I'm 75 right now, and hope to continue at least another 25 years. So we'll try and do that. And it's just my whole upbringing. Being the son of a musician and a successful band leader and a Jew, which was very important in my upbringing. And the whole Jewish community in Brooklyn kind of supported Latin music. And go back to the Catskill Mountains and all. I mean, we used to go, when I was a kid, I used to go see Puente Machito and Tito Rodriguez all playing at the Concord and Grossinger's. And I learned how to dance, and I learned how to hold a girl in my arms for the first time. And it was very romantic music, because most of the jitterbug and all those, the Lindy Hop, were where you danced apart. You really didn't dance close. And Latin music was touching and feeling and holding, and lots of African rhythms to make your feet go. So it was a lot of fun. But the book is wonderful. It's very comical. It's a tell-all on the Fania guys, and I leave nothing out. And I don't withhold anything. I tell the truth, whether you like it or not. It's my opinion. You don't have to believe me, But it was quite a trip, and it's still going on right now. Not as much as it did in the '70s and '80s, but I still make a living. I still see the world. I'm leaving for Japan the end of January, so we have a good time. Now, how else would I have gone to Japan? I mean, how else would I have gotten to see Muhammad Ali and the Rumble in the Jungle and George Foreman and go to the Philippines and meet Manny Pacquiao and this guy and that guy? It was all through Latin music, and I'm very fortunate. I was very blessed to have that kind of career. I need everybody to buy it because I need the pennies that I'm going to make from it. I just want everybody to know what a great form of music this is, and I mean, anybody who's ever gotten involved with Latin music has never left it, so it just stays with you, and it's great exercise to dance. It's a lot of fun to listen to and to watch, and I don't know what I would have done if I probably would have been a rock and roller. But I started smoking cigarettes at an early age, so my voice went immediately, so that ended that.
Advice for young musicians these days who are continuing in the
I got a
ranks.
lot of advice. Don't be a musician. Go to school and study something, but don't be a musician. It, I don't really mean that, but it's a tough life. You have thousands of people out there making thousands of records every day, and why does one make it and why does one doesn't? It's a matter of luck, be in the right place at the right time, a little talent, a little list, a little push, a little pay, go a different route. But it was a hell of a trip.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you taking the time. Just for the record, I started playing with you in 1974. I was 15.
Who are you?
Pete Nader.
Turn the camera around. There he is, folks. There he is. Okay.
And
How old were you then?
I was 15.
15 years. See, I was robbing the cradle.
It's been
I was really a pedophile, but I.
it's been an adventure, and I appreciate your calling me and inviting me.
And we went to the same high school. And lots of kudos to Music and Art High School, who turned out performing arts. What's it called now? LaGuardia School, for turning out such great musicians. A lot of famous Latin guys went there. You know, Dave Valentin and Jerry Gonzalez, etc., etc. And Jason went there too, right? The piano player.
I don't think he
Yes,
did.
he did. Oh, it says he
I
did.
think so.
For the Salsa Legends and the Masters Academy, this is Larry Harlow giving you a little plug. Check it out on the web. Good information, lots of pictures, lots of interviews, and of course, me. So don't forget, check it out. Brand new site. Thank you, Petey.